Alright, so hey guys, and welcome to another episode of MGC. Today, I wanted to take you through all the stuff and all the features that Toyota changed with the 100 series as they went through the full life of this generation, which of course started in 1998 and ended all the way in 2007. So I want to take you through the changes so that if you're shopping for a 100 series, you can know what you're looking for and what you end up buying based on your budget and based on your needs. But just on a side note, this YouTube thing is because I enjoy doing it. It's by no means, an income or anything like that. But I love cars and I love filming. But in my full-time job here in Nairobi, I do have a snacks company. So if you love some snacks and if you're in Nairobi or if you're in Kenya, go ahead and pick up some snacks. This is my company, of course, Manjiko Industries, and the brand is Cheeky Treats. Alright, so you join me in my Land Cruiser Cygnus. You guys know I love this vehicle, but let me take you through some of the stuff that they went through. So, Toyota Land Cruiser 100 series, it was received very well. Huge update from the 80 series. They modernized it, amazing leather, luxury features, and just made it a much more livable vehicle. Now, of course, from the 80 series to the 100 series, we lost that solid axle in the front. We gained independent front suspension, which brings about huge changes in terms of comfort, and you sacrifice just a touch of off-road capability, but you still got a live axle in the rear. And this vehicle is such a good balance between highway driving and just going off the paved road and going wherever you want. This vehicle right out of the box is very capable. So 1998 is where the 100 series came about, and they introduced it. The first generation, of course, this is the Cygnus, so it has the double headlights, but the first generation had those blocky 100 series headlights, but they came as two pieces. The later generations, actually, that headlight became a singular piece, and it became better looking, in my opinion. But the first modeled year of the Land Cruiser 100 series, 1998, you did have a 4-speed transmission that was introduced, and you did have this 2UZ FE motor. This was the first Land Cruiser with a petrol V8. So we got the 2UZ FE, which we now know to be such a stout motor, over 1 million miles in several vehicles. Now, these 1998 models some of them did actually have manual switches for I believe the rear diff locks. So those were pretty rare. Basically, I believe from 2000 onwards, the Land Cruiser got the 8-track system, which is the automatic traction control. And that did away with having to manually lock your differential. So you still have a switch for a center diff lock, but they did away with the manual diff locker, and you got the 8-track system. Now, 8-track is a very functional and a very good system. I've used it plenty of times in my Land Cruiser. Basically, what happens is once the vehicle senses that one of the wheels has lost traction, it sends power only to the wheels that have traction. And so you'll see a bit more spinning and a bit more of the car trying to figure out how to get about the obstacle, but it does get the job done. And so I don't really have any regrets of not having those manual diff lockers. But it started out with a 235 horsepower 2UZ FE petrol engine. There also was a V8 diesel, but this initial 2UZ FE was in my opinion not underpowered, but just a touch sluggish. 235 horsepower, and they remained with that 4-speed transmission, which was also, it would hunt for gears because only 4-speed and fuel economy was not great. So 1998, 1999, you're gonna get manual diff lockers, but you also get automatic height control. So the first model years of this vehicle, already we had automatic height control. Now I know in some regions, I know even in the US market, automatic height control was not offered on all the 100 series models. It came a lot later, and so I know some markets differ, but here in Nairobi we usually get Japanese imports, and so we're referring to those vehicles, and all of those from 98 were coming with automatic height control. So this system has been around for a long time, and a very reliable one, I must say. Alright, now the second change actually had to do with interiors. Basically what you see here is a revised interior. Now this is a Cygnus interior, so it's actually different, and so I'll show you the images that you're looking for. But if you go from 1998 all the way up to the 2002 Land Cruiser 100 series models, you're going to get the previous interior, which is a bit more of an older look, a vintage look. I actually quite like it, but many of them came with just sort of a plastic black finish, but some of them did come with wood, basically the LX versions, the Cygnus versions, and those are quite nice. But the standard one was pretty basic, but it was pretty functional as well. So if you're gonna go for 1998 all the way up to 2002, you're gonna get that previous interior. In 2003 we got the refresh, basically, where they added a much nicer, much more livable interior that sat out at you. And in usual models of the 100 series, you know, they give you what looks like wood, but it's actually plastic trim. But if you go for a Cygnus variant, you'll get the real wood, and you know, this sort of metallic finish, and just a very, very timeless interior, in my opinion. Just looks very, very good. Now, most 100 series came with options of heated seats. I know in the US market, probably all the versions have heated seats. For us, all the versions, as I mentioned, have the automatic height control. You got this beautiful gear lever for the Cygnus, the famous zigzag, but this is the 5-speed transmission, of course. And so if you go for 2003 and onwards, you're basically gonna get the updated 5-speed transmission, which was much better and improved fuel economy quite a bit. So that's something you must consider. But in terms of heated seats, it just depends on the options and the region that you're in, and those are the kind of features that you're going to expect. But other differences would be with the kind of the memory for the seats and the real wood trim, if you're gonna and the chrome bits, and of course the leather. So if you're gonna go for a Cygnus variant, you know you're gonna get better choice of materials. But I know Cygnus variants weren't available in other regions, like especially in America. I know you're just gonna get an LX 470. You're not gonna get a Land Cruiser Cygnus. So, but in Japan you can get them. In Malaysia you can get them. In a few other regions. But even with the Cygnus variants, you know, you get these kind of options. Like I've got these rear vents, basically the rear windows just open up like flaps, so really nice and useful. Of course I've got foldable mirrors and adjustable mirrors and a rear light in my tail light, and I can adjust my beam in my headlights. I can adjust the angle, basically. Alright, so another major aspect or another major change that I should mention about is the engine. You're gonna get the famous 2UZ FE motor in most 100 series variants, but they did make a few changes. And so if you wanted VVTi, which is the variable valve timing, which added a ton of horsepower and also gave you a lot better fuel efficiency, then you're gonna want to go for the 2006 and the 2007 versions. Those came with VVTi and bumped up the horsepower from 235 horsepower all the way up to 275 horsepower, which is right here in this 2007 Land Cruiser Cygnus. And I can confirm that I've driven both variants, and I know I can feel that change of 40 horsepower more. 275 horsepower, the torque, it just picks up, doesn't feel sluggish whatsoever, and it's just clean, continuously giving power. So if that's important to you, you want to consider 06 and 07. Now for the Cygnus version, you got LED tail lights from 06 and 07, but even in the normal variants of the 100 series, for 06 and 07 you got LED tail lights. Now they don't look like this, but I'll show you a variant if I can on the screen right now. So 06 and 07 You also got a bump in the in the tail lights and the headlights to LEDs, which is quite useful and quite nice. And of course, with various versions of the 100 series, you'll see different rims based on different years. Now this is an '07 Cygnus rim or an LX470 '06 or '07, which is this kind of gray finish, chrome gray, and looks really nice. But earlier years there were different rim options. Alright, another thing that they did bring about is what they call VGRS, which is sort of variable gear steering. And what that basically helped to it was that you need to turn the steering less to actually turn more. And so in the previous models it didn't have this, but with the '06s and '07s you also get that VGRS. So another small addition that helps with the maneuverability of this vehicle. I've pretty much mastered this vehicle, and it is so easily maneuverable. There's no problem whatsoever, even though it's a really large vehicle, and even for Nairobi roads it's quite a large vehicle, but they've made it so maneuverable. The last model year of every vehicle is always when they've sort of perfected what they wanted to get out of that generation. So that's another thing to consider. And of course with '06, '07 variants you're gonna get a few more of those niceties, like the telescopic steering wheels. When you put your key in, they adjust, and when you take the key out it basically goes away, so you have more space to maneuver in the cabin. And with '06, '07 variants, if you're going for a Cygnus, you're gonna of course get the options like the Mark and Levinson audio system. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit like, subscribe.